Hello and welcome to Reviews. Oh, wow, what a crazy week this has been, right? Oh, as you may remember, I had billboarded a video series I was actually working on. Been kind of working on a little bit, but things have been moving too crazy. But I was working on a video series about the social media problem that the comics industry has, especially Marvel. Marvel being one of the big boys here. And then things flipped last week. Well, sure, Max Bemis and Dan Slott are entertaining. Mark Waid has always been good for just losing his mind. And oh boy, last week was no exception. Let's see if I can give a 2-minute rundown for those of you who are unaware. Richard Meyer, your boy Zach from Diversity in Comics, he started an Indiegogo for his comic Jawbreakers, which, let me pull this up here, and yeah, as of right when I'm filming this, that is a lot of money. We're going on $300,000 of his $5,000 goal. He's killing it. Now, mind you, this is without any type of press. This has really just been Richard on his channel, promoting it, his Indiegogo, and other people on YouTube. The comics industry, both the pros and the media, have been silent on this. Basically, they were avoiding the Streisand effect, and I don't blame them. Until Richard, or Zach, found a publisher. He went with Antartic Press, who is a small publisher, granted. Now, according to Zach, they had a 50-50 deal of the profits once it was published. And so, Antarctic Press made the announcement that, yes, they are going to publish the book. And that is when people started losing their minds. We had kind of a collusion in a Facebook group about shop owners saying that they refused to carry it even if their customers ordered it. But the big thing is that Mark Waid admitted that he called Antarctic Press. This is huge. This is really, really huge. Mark Waid is a creator at Marvel Comics. He's a writer. I used to really like Mark Waid. In fact, his Flash run is probably one of my favorite Flash runs ever. He's the guy that invented the Speed Force. I liked his concept of hyper time. He wrote Kingdom Come. But in the past 10-15 years, he has not been the same guy. He's really kind of gone downhill, and that's just my opinion. But his stuff before was great. However, last Friday, right after Zach announced that he was going to be published, Mark called the company and went on a tirade. And here, as you can see, that he says that his marketing strategy is to encourage fans to threaten employees of the store and harass stores that don't order their product. Remember, it had just been announced that Jawbreakers would be published through Antarctic Press. There was no distribution yet. There were no orders placed. It hadn't even made it to the Diamond catalog. So no one could actually order it yet unless they just called their comic shop and asked to be put on a pull list. But that's not the same as the comic actually being ordered. But Mark Waid spazzed out and lost his mind. And as you can see, I have his Facebook post here, what he said. And that's when things got a little weird. Now, I'm going off some conjecture here because it's a he said, she said. Zach has said in one of his videos that the owner of Antarctic Press, that this is basically like a second job for the owner, had called Zach in near tears that he was going to have to drop the book and he wouldn't be able to publish it. He seemed really, according to Zach, he seemed really upset by it. Antarctic Press, on the other hand, started issuing statements that kind of went against that. But, and this is the important thing, as you can see here, they did admit that Mark Waid had called their office. Now they're claiming that they didn't call Marvel or the editor-in-chief of Marvel. They said that they didn't feel threatened by Mark Waid's call. However, this is big. You don't see this kind of stuff, in other businesses. Mark Waid, as an employee of Marvel Comics, was calling a competitor, mind you, a small competitor, but a competitor nonetheless, to try and talk them out of carrying a product. And of course, Antarctic Press had another Facebook post, which, as you can see here, they explain more that it was the decision of Antarctic Press to not release Jawbreakers. They say that they're a believer in creators' rights and giving creators a chance to showcase their creation. And they say that they believe in the separation between art and artist, and that the separation has been blurred. It's a very wishy-washy statement. If they truly believed the separation of the art from the artist, you would think they would go ahead with this. It sounds like, compared to what we're seeing with some of the comic shops saying that they wouldn't carry Antarctic Press books at all if they released Jawbreakers, it does kind of give a little bit of collusion, threatening. I can't say what was said. I can only go with what was posted publicly. However, this dovetails very nicely into the series that I've been kind of working on. As I mentioned in a previous video, I had someone that worked at Disney who was going to supply me with their business conduct guidelines, basically all their handbooks. And as I mentioned in the last video, they kind of fell through, so it kind of left that whole series up in the air. However, I've been doing some research the past couple days, and I found a few things that are Disney guidelines, Disney employee manuals, policy guidelines, etc. One from 2012 and one from 2016, especially. These are really the important ones. And other than the legal aspect of what has happened with Mark, he may have gotten Marvel into a lot of trouble, which is why you've seen Mark Waid go Facebook silent. He is not on social media at the moment. He's been kind of chilling out because what he did could violate, I'm not a lawyer, but this could violate tort law. And what's interesting about this is that Disney has policies about this. Let me pull up a couple things here. For example, let's look at their comments about the social media policy. Now, as you can see from this page of the use of social media, which is from 2016, just about 2 years old. Now, granted, I am going to say that these may be more toward parks, and amusement side, but I can't imagine that Disney, as the owner of Marvel, would have completely different guidelines for various divisions of entertainment. As someone that's worked in the career that I do, I've sometimes worked for contractors where we've had to follow guidelines for both companies. As you see in here, there is a responsibilities line about when using other social media, such as Facebook, such as Twitter. And they say that, as it says here, employees' online activities conducted on non-company platforms, but which relate to the company's business interests, are also subject to company policies, including this employee policy manual and the standards of business conduct. Think about that for a second. Also relates to the company's business interest. Calling a competitor and advising them not to publish a book. Now, granted, again, I don't know what Waid actually said. I'm only going by what has been posted. but I can't imagine he was saying anything, positive about it. He should not even have been calling a competitor at all. But it's interesting about that whole thing about the standards of business conduct. So I've been doing some more research, and I did find this. Let's go back. Now, granted, this is from an older guide. This is from 2012. This is Disney's competition rules, our commitment to lawful business practices. Now, pay attention to what this says. Let me highlight this. Antitrust laws, sometimes called competition laws or unfair trade laws, prohibit agreements that unreasonably restrict competition. Okay? Here's what we really need to pay attention to. Don't enter into any agreement or understanding, whether formal or informal, with a competitor, customer, or supplier to set prices or price fixing terms, blah, blah, blah. Refuse to deal with a customer or supplier. This is interesting. This is out of one of Disney's guides. This is from 2012. And it says to do not enter into any agreement, whether formal or informal. So we're talking about an informal understanding with a competitor. Talk about refusing to deal with a customer or supplier. Okay, so it's kind of fuzzy on the end there, but this looks like Mark is, if these policies are still in effect right now, Mark Waid is violating Disney, Marvel's parent company's own guidelines. And this is the series I had been working on. A lot of Marvel's creators, when they get on social media, are doing this. I've been able to find a few things. Unfortunately, it's not the document I was hoping to get. My person bailed out on me, which talks about presenting the company. Basically, don't be a dick on social media. And a lot of Marvel's writers and staff are breaking that. But this is just... this is beyond the pale. I cannot believe that Mark Waid thought this was a good idea. Maybe he thought he was untouchable. And this is not even in addition to possible legal ramifications, because Zach has already said that he is talking with a lawyer. He is looking into this. There's the tort reforms, I believe it is. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but we are definitely looking at unfair trade laws. We're looking at antitrust right now. And Mark Waid, as an employee at Marvel, is violating it. And he has violated. And that's why we're not going to hear anything from Mark, because I give it a few more days, and I would not be surprised if CB himself might make a statement, might have to start backtracking. Don't be surprised if Mark Waid is not on a book for a while. But yeah, I had to touch this because it dovetailed right nicely into the series I've been trying to do research into. I don't like to just throw things together and read into a camera. I like to do my homework, do my due diligence, and delve in and give as proper as a response as possible. But this, time goes quick on the internet, and I had to get something out there, and I have not seen anyone else actually approaching this from this angle. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting to watch this play out for a time being here. Should Zach decide to pursue legal action, he might actually have a case here. Not saying it's a slam dunk. Again, third time, not a lawyer. But this is huge. And this is one hell of a screw up.